In just a little bit, I would like to show you some photos of a mission trip crossing borders, and most of you are aware of that I and 20 other people went off on a mission trip here back in December, and many of you were helpful with that, supported it in various ways, and we appreciate that. And some good things went on down there. I do want to share a few stories and some pictures with you about that. But as I was thinking about the trip, before we went on the trip, what I do as a director is I try to set a theme for each trip. Something we can think about, something that has a specific meaning just for that particular trip. It gets challenging sometimes after 26 trips trying to come up with a different theme. Of course, I guess if I repeated it, they'd never know. So that's just the way it works. But I go back to Luke 10, and I'm going to read you some verses out of Luke 10 to give you an idea of the theme. And they're here in Luke 10, verses 1 through 9. You may remember this story, but let me just read through this for you. It says, after this, the Lord appointed 72 others. So he's talking about his disciples. He picked 72 of his disciples and sent them out 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. He told them, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. Go, I am sending you out like lambs among wolves. Do not take a purse or a bag or sandals. Do not greet anyone on the road. When you enter a house, first say, peace to this house. If someone who promotes peace is there, your peace will rest on them. If not, it will return to you. Stay there, eating and drinking whatever they give you, for the worker deserves his wages. Do not move around from house to house. And when you enter a town and are welcome, eat what is offered to you. Heal the sick who are there, and tell them, the kingdom of God has come near to you. There's a lot of lessons we can get out of that story. And you may have heard sermons about many of these different aspects of it. Why did he send people out in twos? You could give a whole sermon on why people go out in small groups like that. There's sermons on the harvest being plentiful. You might have heard themes or sermons about being lambs among the wolves, what that means. About what does this mean, this man of peace, this person of peace, what does that mean? Of course, whole sermons about the kingdom of God and how this led into the fulfillment and what Christ wanted accomplished with the kingdom of God. But there's another lesson that I want us to get from this today, and that is the lesson of being engaged. Engaged. That's the word that I picked for our mission trip this year, and I want to share with you some thoughts about that today. Because it doesn't apply just to a mission trip to some foreign country, it applies to your and my mission right here in our town, in our lives, in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our families as well. So what does it mean to be engaged? Well, it means to be involved. It means to participate, to command the interest of, to be focused on. It can mean to be gripped by. Sounds pretty strong, doesn't it? To be gripped by, to be captivated, to be engrossed, absorbed, occupied. You may see the commercial on TV. I think it's an insurance commercial, I'm not sure. And kind of the motto says, life comes at you fast. Anybody ever seen that one? So, but doesn't life come at us fast? Do you ever get the feeling in life that things are rushed? Anybody ever feel like that? Do you ever feel distracted by things going on in your life? Do you ever feel like you're running on a multi-track system, kind of like the old 8-track system where different tracks running at the same time? You have to try to keep up. Do you ever feel overwhelmed by busyness, by continuous inputs into our lives? You ever notice that the news cycles every minute of every day, that if you've read the news or seen it on your TV or listened on the radio or picked up your smartphone and read the news 5 minutes ago, you can look at it again 5 minutes later and there's more news, there's more things that are happening. that you're expected to keep up with, to know about, to make a part of your life? Do you ever feel bombarded or dazed or confounded even by the things in life, just by our schedules, by all the things that people expect of us, by all the things that come at us over and over again? How engaged are we in our lives? What percentage of our time are we truly engaged in what is happening right now? And that was the purpose, that was my theme during the mission trip, to be fully engaged right now. Are you fully engaged right now as we're here in this service? Are we fully engaged in worship? Or maybe does our mind wander off? And it's okay if it does, that's just human nature. But as we get toward the end of the sermon, we're thinking, are the Cowboys playing today? I wonder how long the line is at Luby's. Does things crop up in our brains maybe? Thinking about your family, thinking about someone that you know that's sick, thinking about some need. Those things can happen. We become unengaged from the present moment sometimes because we get distracted by so many other things floating around in our lives. But can we tune out other things? And these were questions and comments I was making on the mission trip. Can we tune out those things? Can we focus on this moment, this event, the person that you are with at that moment in time, versus keeping several plates spinning all the time, being half focused, rushed, distracted, with no closure to so many things that happen to us in our lives? You ever been in a restaurant and you look across the room and there's a couple or two or three people, whatever it might be? Sometimes it looks like a man and a wife. And they're at the same table, but they're on two totally separate worlds. One of them's got the cell phone out and they're texting somebody or maybe talking to somebody, and the other one either looks bored and staring off into space, or they've got their cell phone out and they're doing the same thing on their cell phone. And you watch them for 15 minutes before the meal shows up, and they don't say anything to each other. They're off somewhere else. They're sitting at the same table, but they're off somewhere else. Are they engaged in the right now in their life? Maybe not. Maybe you and I are guilty of things like that sometimes too. Maybe someone's talking to you, talking to me. I might say I resemble this remark because my wife can be talking to me sometimes. And the proper response is, yeah, if you throw that in every few seconds, everything seems good, right? Except you're not really engaged. I'm not engaged. I'm like thinking of something else. I'm like, I got to get on that text and answer that person back. As soon as we get through here, I'm going to go do this. And I'm fairly bad about that. So to be engaged in the right now. In Luke 10, how does that work? Why did I read you Luke 10? Well, in Luke 10, these disciples that are sent out, 2 by 2, they're pulled away from their normal. They leave their home. They're told not to take spare clothes, not to take money. They leave other possessions behind. They're off with a relative stranger, possibly, this person that they're matched up with, that they're going out with. They sleep in a different bed, a different house. They're in a different town maybe every few days. Different food, whatever's made for you, that eat, it says. They have different experiences that they've never had before. They're uncomfortable. This is outside the box. They're sent on an important mission to announce, to model, and to build the kingdom of God. Why does a mission trip have such potential to be life transforming? I'm always amazed by this. I've been on 26 trips, and especially people who've never been before, and sometimes those of us have been many times, when the trip is going along and as it comes to an end and we sit around in a circle on our final chapel service and we share our stories about what we saw and felt and learned, I'm always amazed as to the changes that happen in people's lives. Why does that happen on a mission trip and it doesn't happen back home as easily? Well, on a crossing borders trip, on any kind of mission trip, People, in our case, are hundreds of miles from home in most cases. They travel from all over the United States, sometimes outside the United States, and they come to the Mexican border. They're sleeping in bunk beds with 10 people to a room, with strangers, with snorers. I mean, I can vouch for that. I'm one of those, but there's a couple of guys who actually can probably beat me out on some nights. So we're keeping different hours than we keep back home, different schedule, different foods. Sometimes we eat across the border. We eat foods they prepare for us. Sometimes we're eating things at camp that my mom's prepared for us and sent down for us. So things are different. It's challenging. It's different. And it brings out things in us that we wouldn't have otherwise. We have these experiences that are new and challenging. We're in a different culture. We're in a different country. They speak a different language. You see, and all of that is similar to what Jesus did here when he sent his disciples out. Leave what's comfortable, leave what's normal, don't take anything. Go out there and go to these towns and do this with these new people. And that's what you do on a mission trip. You leave all those things behind and you go do something totally different, in a different culture, in a different world, as it were. They're sent on an important mission to announce, to model, and to build the kingdom of God. That's what mission trips should be for. So we prepare our missionaries mentally. First night we were all together down there. I got everybody together and we have our little meeting where we talk about what to expect. And I presented this idea to be fully engaged in whatever is happening right now on the mission trip. Doesn't matter if we're eating, doesn't matter if there's songs going on, doesn't matter if you're carrying shoe boxes into the church or the orphanage, doesn't matter if you're sitting in a pew trying to talk to the people that speak Spanish around you. Whatever it is, be engaged in that moment right then. Don't be thinking of stuff back home, your boyfriend, your wife, the family, the bills, the job. Take your cell phone and put it as far away from you as you can possibly get it. Turn it off. Don't be checking your Facebook page, see whether people liked you or unliked you or whatever happens on Facebook. Don't be calling people back home just to visit. But as much as possible, put all that away. Unplug those music earbuds out of your ears. I tell the teenagers, leave them in your room. Don't take them on the van. Don't take them across the border. Talk to the people around you and experience something different. Pitch in to do the things that we do that you might not normally do. Step up in areas that you wouldn't normally step up in and be engaged in what's going on right now. So that was our lesson. I think that's a lesson that applies to many of us in our lives even today, to focus on the now moment, to listen, to observe, to communicate, to appreciate, to be fully engaged, because this moment, I told them, this moment will never happen again. The person you're talking to, the event that's taking place right now, the things that you can see, the expression on somebody's face. When we hand these kids a shoebox, or we see them sitting out there in the little folding chairs, or sitting on the ground, and they're singing, or they're standing up, and their loud music's playing, and they're jumping up and down, or whatever it might be. That's a one-time thing. That's it. If we miss it, it's gone. And life does that to us. So I think we should be fully engaged as much as we can in every moment of nowness that we can take advantage of. Don't miss the now by being fearful or distracted. Let me show you some photos, and maybe if it works out, a couple of short videos of some things that went on the trip. And here we are trying to be fully engaged on this trip. And I think if you look around at some of the photos, you'll see the missionaries doing some things maybe that some of these people I knew, and I went, they'll never do that. And they did. So here we go. This is just a logo. Here we are. Oh, you recognize this place, don't you? This is over in the fellowship hall. We're setting up the night before for packing the shoe boxes. So stuff was spread out. Appreciate all the donations of things that showed up for that. Go ahead, William. Here we are packing away. Some folks, go ahead. And here's where it looks like they're doing things with socks and little shirts and getting them ready to go in the shoe boxes. Great, go ahead. And here's the photo. And if you might remember, this photo got put on the back of a picture postcard. I don't know if everyone saw one of those, but it's Jane's daughter Tracy does a thing called script pics. And on the front was a real pretty, beautiful picture and a scripture in Spanish. And on the back was this picture with a message in Spanish saying that these were gifts of love given to you by our church in Texas. And so one of those cards was put in all the boxes that we packed here at our church. So here's Glenda with some of her quilts. Many people donated many handmade beautiful things, and that was one of them. Now we're down at the camp. These are shoe boxes that have arrived in the week or so before camp. They were shipped down there directly from Virginia and Colorado, California, Tallahassee, Florida, Spanish club over in Atlanta, Georgia, a Catholic school up in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., different churches, different groups. This is just some of them. So go ahead. This is some that we brought down. They weren't in the ship. That we brought them in our U-Haul that we brought from here, that I collected ours and from 2 or 3 other churches around here, and then went over to Dallas and picked some up over there and put them in the U-Haul. This is just a portion of them, not all of them. I've got to tell you a little story here about Jason and Irina. They've never been on our mission trip before. They found out about us on the internet 2 weeks before the trip, which was past the deadline to apply. Jason called, said, "Can we still come?" And we said, "Sure, we'll work it out." So they came. Well, they are apparently, this was a first, they are apparently the first couple that we've ever had come on the mission trip that this was their first date. They had met each other online a month before. He's from Idaho, or Iowa, and she lives down in Houston. She's from Russia originally, and she'd been married before years ago, has a teenage daughter, and they'd met online. And they had never met in person until he flew down from Iowa to Houston, and they got in her car and drove over to the border of Laredo. So this was literally their first date, was on our trip. And talk about getting out of your comfort zone and stretching. They did it. So there you go. Oh, that's interesting. Oh yeah, just close that. There you go. These are blankets. This is kind of all of them, but look how many there are there. Quilts and Afghans and blankets of all kinds that people made and sent down. And these go into what we call tote bags for the mothers of infants and small children and so forth. So these are very, very much appreciated down there. This is at the camp, the first night. This is baby supplies and so forth, and we're going to be packing those into the tote bags. The first night, we end up with a lot of extra stuff. I don't know where this stuff all comes from, but we pack all these boxes, shoe boxes, and we say, okay, we're done. And then we get down there, and there's like tables of stuff that just appears by magic. And so we take extra empty shoe boxes down there. They're pre-wrapped, and people pack more shoe boxes the first night we're there. And we're up till midnight, 1 o'clock, trying to get everything ready. This was the fun van. This was my van. There was 3 different vans. There's people in this van there's a family of 6. That's the dad driving. That's his face there. His wife's sitting directly behind him. And they have 4 children, which are not in this van. They got another van so they could get away from their parents for the weekend. We had 3 vans, and the van is packed to the ceiling with shoe boxes in the back. They're under the seats. We got our feet propped up on shoe boxes. They're just crammed in there. So there we go. So as we're driving into Mexico, these are some of the sights we see. These are actually some of the more decent houses where we're going. They're worse than this, but this is actually kind of in town right here. Go ahead. So these are what you'd call more the middle class kind of houses down there. There's really not much of a middle class, but if there were, this would be what it would be. Cars are kind of beat up. The houses are just whatever they can find to kind of put together. where we go, the houses are built out of plywood and pallets and tin and old billboard signs and stuff like that. No running water, dirt floors usually, no toilets, no sewer, no electricity in most cases. This is a church. This is Pastor Pedro in the front there. This is a guitar we bought him a couple years ago, acoustic guitar, so he could take it to churches that he helps interior that don't have electricity. He couldn't take his sound system and his electric guitar, so we bought this one for him. And he sings and plays and preaches, and we go to his church and help out with some skits and messages and testimonials and some songs and so forth. And this is what we were doing the first morning. See a few of our people standing around in the back. Here we are carting the boxes in, getting ready to give them away to the excited kiddos. We gave away about 75 boxes there, one of our smaller groups actually. Here I'm up front with our translator and some other members of our team. And I'm not giving a message per se. That's right. What I'm doing here is I've made up a quiz, kind of a Christmas quiz for the kids. And I had, I think, 12 questions, about, so who was Jesus's mother and what town was Jesus born in, and questions about the wise men and the angels and so forth, and trying to get the kids to think and answer them. They did right well, actually. So we're doing that. Here's Pastor Pedro. He gave a sermon, really, a kind of a pre-Christmas sermon, and they always do kind of an altar call, I guess you'd call it, at the end. And a family, here's 9 members of a single family that came up to dedicate their lives to Christ on that day. That was kind of cool. Everything's not serious. Sometimes our people get a little punchy, and they wear funny glasses and funny hats, and the people love that. But even while we're being funny, I was just amazed. People, if you tell people to be engaged, they're engaged. We mentioned it at breakfast. We mentioned it sometimes when we get out at a stop. Now let's be sure that we really are engaged in what's going on here today. And I said, even if you're just standing against the wall and watching what's going on, be engaged in your watching and in your listening. Even if you're not right in the thick of things, carrying boxes or moving things around or singing, be engaged. I think we can do that in our personal lives also. Here's a couple of kids, shoe boxes and a blanket she's taken home to a baby back at the house. Now we're moving to another location. A children's home has about 25 or so kids. We go there frequently. We had to stop at Little Caesars. Yes, there are Little Caesars in Mexico. And so we were buying pizza to take out to the, we don't always, cook full-fledged meals. Sometimes we're like, let's go by Little Caesars and get some pizza. And they love to see us come because we buy a few pizzas. So I'll tell you more about Napo, the black fella there later. But now we're out at Sister Juanita's children's home. And we've visited with her every trip since we met her probably 5 or 6 years ago. Just a wonderful lady who takes care of these children in her care, and quite a number of kids in the neighborhood that come down to her house during the week, and she takes care of them as well too. So we're just kind of hanging with the kids. We're there for a few hours. We're doing some crafts here. We're doing these masks that you can kind of paint on and draw on. Doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Kids just love the attention. They just love someone to show them some love. So Billy is one of our people. She's just sitting there doing the crafting. There's 3 or 4 tables of Uno going on. You don't have to know English or Spanish to play Uno, so we figured that out years ago. So we always have 4 or 5 decks of Uno cards with us. And the kids just love sitting around and playing Uno. This was David. He's from the family of 6 that flew out from Atlanta, and they've come, I think, 4 times, 4 winters. Expensive proposition to fly a family of 6 from the East Coast to the border of Mexico and Texas. And they've done it every winter since they first came. Maybe one day they won't be able to come, that's fine. But right now, while the kids are growing up, they just find it to be so formative for the kids that they continue to come. So David brings his violin, and he's serenading the kids with some Christmas carols. We're, of course, fighting over who gets to hold the babies. That's just the way it works. So Irina and Barb are saying, is it my turn yet? You know, you've had her long enough. So go ahead. We've handed out some boxes. They're checking them out. They're checking out their harmonicas and their little books and socks and toothpaste and whatever they've got, little games. Can't show you all the pictures of all the kids, but they really, really appreciate it. And that's very, very special for them. Go ahead. There's a couple of boys' boxes. Here's some girls. Girls are very neat about their boxes. Well, let's stick through it very carefully and put it back the way it came out. Boys are kind of like scattered all over the ground, trading. They're out there trading stuff between each other. So this is two little bitty girls. They got their shoe boxes too. And this is Roberta Hooser. I mentioned her in a prayer request 2 or 3 weeks ago. She was pregnant on the trip and lost her baby after it was born prematurely, and she about a month after she got back home. So I wanted to show you Roberta. This the story that's going to come with this. This is the card, the postcard, the script picks card that was in the box, and this is the back of it with a little message on it and our photo. So you can imagine the kid opens his shoebox. Go ahead to the next slide. And we're at Sister Juanita's, and this little boy, of course, the boxes get all mixed up once they get down there. We don't know which boxes from which church or in which van or even where they're going to get unloaded. But our 50 or so boxes from here, we're scattered in the mix. So this little boy opens his box, and he finds our picture, our card in there. And he's looking on the back and see what he's pointing to something. He's pointing to his box. He's located the paper around the color of the paper on his box. He's found it in the photo, and he tells Barb, and Barb comes and gets me, and he goes, this is my box. So that's how personal it is. God does amazing things sometimes when he works these things out. And so he found me in the picture too, because I was in the picture. So I got my picture with him, with the picture of all of us. So it's kind of one of those kind of things. Kind of a fun God moment. We're at another place now. Pastora Marta has this, I call it a church, but it's really a children's ministry more than a church. First time we went there several years ago, it was a dirt lot with about 8 mismatched folding chairs, and that was, and a microphone and a little boom box. That was kind of it. And so now they're slowly building on their building. They got walls and ceiling up. Going to be working on the second floor pretty soon. There's 250 kids in that room, because that's how many tickets they gave out, and that's how many boxes we gave at that location. So we're teaching them some Christmas carols that we made hand motions to, and they're Spanish Christmas carols, so that was interesting, translating them and then trying to make up hand motions to them. Sue and I and some others worked on that, and so we're playing those songs and showing them the hand. Kids love to move, so that's cool. All right, go ahead. This would be a video if it works. It worked. Joy to the World in Spanish. This is our group on stage because there's nowhere else for us to stand. All right. That's good enough, William. Good. All right. William's doing good up there. Thank you, sir. We're helping them sing some songs. They're singing in Spanish. We kind of don't know much Spanish, but we're singing anyway. So having a good time. They're so proud of this mural that they got painted. And for us, this would just seem like that's just a little mural. But when you think of what they don't have down there to come up with the paper and the paint and someone to do that, that's a huge investment for them. And he was so proud that they had that to show us this year. There's the pastor while she's speaking at one point, very, very sweet. Her and her husband are probably the most thankful people I know. They're amazing. They are doing a skit. This interesting story behind this skit is we always try to put something in the box besides the photo that we put in here from our church. Some of you that helped pack the boxes, you remember there was a written thing that went in there too. It was a little a game, it was a puzzle kind of thing. Well, last year we gave There's a reading about the Christmas story. It was called something about the perfect little lamb or something. And it was we had it in Spanish. And really it was kind of the skit of the Christmas story, but it was about the perfect lamb. And so this year, they saved that piece of paper and they turned it into a skit, and they're doing a skit off the piece of paper we put in their boxes last year. So that was kind of cool to see that little resource being used. And they take the skit out to the neighborhood and they do it in different places. So it's kind of cool. And here again, the money they spent to come up with these costumes and stuff, funds I don't know where they come up with the money. Little girl here enjoying her box, and we give them some crackers and a juice packet. And there's a little evangelistic kind of brochure there that they get to. These are the ladies at that church that cooked us lunch, and very thankful to them for that. That's a special treat they do to honor us, and we appreciate it. Here's the lunch. Some of it, I don't know what it was, but we ate it. It tasted pretty good. In Luke 10, Jesus said, go out and what they serve you, just eat it up. So sometimes we don't recognize what it is, but no one's died yet, so it's okay. All right, go ahead. This is called our family. It's the Rodriguez family. We built a house for them a few years ago. You kind of can't see that part of the house we built. It's the roof line just kind of behind the little shanty-looking piece. That was our old house. But we go by on every trip, and we at least visit with them. On the winter trip, we just have time to spend maybe an hour with them, and mom and dad and the 3 kids. So it's all about relationship, and so we're just touching base with their American aunts and uncles. We just visit with them. We're so proud of them because, of course, there's no running water, nothing like that out there. They have strung a few electric lines through there, sort of illegally, but there is some electricity in there. But they actually have a bathroom. This is the outside, kind of bathroom. But they built this wall, and go ahead to the next picture. And there's a toilet in there. Probably it was somebody's leftover toilet, because you'll never find a toilet in Mexico with a toilet seat. That's just even in grocery stores or little stores, places like that. That's just a luxury. So they don't have that, and I see they don't even have the tank cover. Probably it was probably a broken toilet they got from somewhere. And then the other half of the little building there has a drain in the floor, so they can go in there, close the door, take their bucket of water with them, and ladle water over them that's how they can take a bath now. So they actually have a place that can go do that. Here's the family. And they're growing up really fast. We did find a Mexican market open, and so we stopped for about 45 minutes, which was not nearly long enough for most of the women, and gave them time. There was about 20 or 30 little booths set up with Mexican handmade stuff from South Mexico. Little fun mixed in. I think the video may be right after this, but see the condition of the road there. There's sometimes we can't drive to the places. We have to park a block or 2 or 3 away and carry this stuff because it's just, the roads are too bad. We did make it through there. Is there a video that plays with this, William? Yeah, listen to the sound here. This is us driving to that church. All right, just wanted you to see. Not all smooth. So we finally did make it to the church, and again, there's 250 kids in here with tickets, and there are some parents and adults and so forth. And nice crowd, Pastor Fernando and his wife, Nora. So let's see, go ahead, there's gonna be another video here in a minute. These are, I'm asking my questions about Christmas, and man, they are ready. This kid, he knows them all. I had to not call on him after a while because he knew everything. So that was fun. Go ahead. Now this is their worship leaders leading their music. Some of our people just went ahead and got up front, even though we had no idea what was going on, and we're just following them. So talk about being engaged. They just like, well, they're up there doing it. Let's go. We're watching the worship leaders just trying to follow their hand motions and jump when they jump. And so the louder it is and the more motions, the more the kids like it. All right, that's good. Thank you, sir. William is doing awesome. You can go ahead and stop that one if you want and go to the next photo. Here we're outside at that church where we're getting everything set up. The kids are inside and we get stuff set up outside while they're in there. And this is Barb taking a picture of me, taking a picture of them. And the way that works. There's some of the baby totes and blankets packed up ready for the mamas to come by the table, and we'll give those away. This is Irina, one of our first date people, handing a box to a little girl. So she's from Russia to Mexico to hand this shoebox to this little girl. And there's her, I guess I'll say boyfriend, Jason. And a quick story about Napo here. His name is actually Abdoulaye Napo. Napo's what we'd call his last name. He's from Africa, from a Muslim country in Africa. And came to the U.S. 10 or so years ago. He's gotten his citizenship. He and his wife are here with 3 children. And he's been a Muslim his whole life. His family's all Muslim. Until about 3 years ago, and I don't know his whole story about how it happened, but he became a Christian. And he attends one of our denomination's churches up in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. And he doesn't go by the name Abdoulaye anymore because Abdoulaye means slave to Allah. And if you're a kid and you're Muslim, parents love to name their kids Abdoulaye, slave to Allah. Well, he's not a slave to Allah anymore, so he just goes by his last name, Napo. So he'll answer to the other, but he'll correct you and say, call me Napo. So it's pretty inspiring to be with him. His wife is still a devout Muslim. She won't let the children go to church with him, of course. She takes them to the mosque, and all his family is Muslim. And even when he goes back home to Africa to visit, they'll visit with him. They won't totally throw him out, but he's definitely the outcast of the family. But he is one excited Christian, I'll tell you that. He's a cool dude. Here we're praying for one of our pastor partners. It's late at night. We've had a really, really full day, but he's got some surgery coming up. They've been through some circumstances this last year, and his wife's there on the right. And so we're all just praying for him for several minutes. And the last slide here is our little group. At the end of camp, everybody survived. Everybody was engaged. Everybody made it through just fine. Thank you for your help with that. Thanks, William. So in closing, there in Luke 10, Jesus was telling his disciples to get rid of the extraneous, to focus on the simple, to be released from the busyness, the schedule, the preconceptions, the expectations, to be free and to be fully engaged. On a mission trip to Mexico, we get to experience the same conditions, and it is life-changing. But how do you and I do here at home in our daily lives with being fully engaged with the now? And so I just leave us with that thought. Encourage us. Maybe you're good with that. See, I don't know a lot of you well enough to know. I haven't followed you around during your days. I know what my life's like, and being engaged at each and every moment is tough. It's tough. Sometimes the day will go by, the week will go by, the month will go by, and I'll look back and go, what did I miss? What happened that could have been important, that could have been life-changing to me or maybe to someone else, and maybe I missed it. So I encourage each of us to see what is happening near us, to listen to the words being spoken, pay attention to the person you're with, to appreciate each moment that God gives us. We have all been given an important mission by God to announce, to model, and to build the kingdom of God to those around us, in our own little world, in the usually small, but always very important ways that God provides for us. So let's be fully engaged in the mission God gives us in our life.